It wouldn't be Valentine's Day with a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. This is an emergency touring car update.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. An unexpected upload for you. Some news we were expecting to come from Aaron Taylor-Smith, which we will get onto, and then some rather larger news that we weren't expecting.
Yes, to clarify for everybody, the Valentine's Day news doesn't relate to us. We're not breaking up. The partnership is still going strong. The pod still continues. And yes, we would normally wait to the end of February. And in all due respect to Aaron Taylor-Smith, we'd have probably waited for him to be summed up in the end of February update. But the bigger news, as you say, which we'll get to in a moment, has shocked the grid, really, and it's required an emergency update. I won't ask how you are because we are both unwell, so apologies for any nasal passages. The dog is unwell, so if he makes a cough or a snore during the podcast, he's devastated with the Colin news as well. So yeah, we're fighting on all fronts, and we're trying to get through it.
Yeah, you may have already seen our small update on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't already, go and subscribe. Make sure you go and like that post as well, because the more interaction we get, the more people are going to see it. And it's good for us, really.
I know we keep saying that we are going to make more of an effort with TikTok this year. I've forgotten how easy it is to use. We will be making more content over there this year, I promise.
So then, the big news. Colin...
Well, should we start with the small news first and build up to the big
news?
Okay. Keep them listening. Keep them hooked. Keep them hooked.
So, the first news was PMR were struggling for money.
Well,
and
sponsors,
which is money. Massively crucial for a team like them as well.
Yeah.
They survive on having the sponsorship on the car. The car's always looked busy and full of sponsors
compared to some other vehicles,
which is why they, as an independent team, they were able to go racing, and over the last couple of seasons racing very well. But it looks like a partnership has come to an end, and they're going to be searching big time for a substantial sponsor by the sounds of it, and maybe struggling to make the grid for 2025. Consequently,
well,
do you reckon?
No.
Okay.
Because I think it's moved too quickly. So obviously PMR announced on the Thursday that they'd lost Evans Halshaw. Well, lost Pendragon, which is the part of the Evan Halshaw group.
Yeah.
So what they've seen for the last couple of seasons has been Paramax Racing with Evan Halshaw, and that's been their sort of their partners to bring them to the grid. Evans Halshaw or Pendragon are stepping away, which means they've lost a joint title sponsor, which is obviously bad news for a team.
Earlier than expected as well. They originally had a 5-year deal with Evans Halshaw to be the title sponsor, basically, for the team. That has ended after 3. Now, there's no clear reason as to why it has ended. Just the two parties have gone separate ways, whether there isn't enough money or enough income or enough publicity. It's a weird one. There's lots of different things that go on behind the scenes with deals like these.
I have a theory.
Go on.
I have a theory that Bristol Street Motors, who will be a competitor to Evans Halshaw, have come in and blown or raised the bar with terms of what they offer, i.e. the fan zones, all the extra access, etc.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they're looking at that and wondering if they can compete with, obviously, different circus has a different team, but from a sponsor's point of view, you've got a competitor on the grid who's doing better on the track than you, better off the track than you at these events.
Yep.
Do you look at it and go, well, actually, we're getting overshadowed here? That's a possibility.
It could also be a difficult financial climate, and
of course,
they might not have the funds there to go racing, basically.
Of course. So yeah, that was announced on the Thursday.
So you don't think as a consequence of it?
Well, because 24 hours later, he's announced where he's at. Now, I don't see a deal progressing that quickly, personally. Now, of course, it would have probably been known to other people in and around the grid that PMR were potentially struggling. We don't get minute by minute updates from the grid because that's their business, obviously. So there's probably murmurings in and around the grid that they were struggling, and therefore people were probably talking to Aaron Taylor-Smith in case of a problem at PMR, and also because Aaron Taylor-Smith finished 7th last year in a car older than Barney Rubble, and he has had a bit of a renaissance in his touring car career. You think how long he's been in it. This is some of his best racing we've seen over the last 2 years. Dominated the independent driver trophy. He will have been on teams' radars as a really good, safe pair of hands and a really good driver option in the current market. When you look at the current market and you look at what you need to bring, and you look at something like Aaron Taylor-Smith, he ticks a lot of the boxes.
Yep.
So I think there have been talks between him and other teams anyway, but I think that was then accelerated by any whiff of weakness in another team can accelerate getting you out of there into your team. But I don't think it was a case of that was released on the Thursday. Aaron Taylor Smith raced down to Peter Underwingy style, camped outside Speedworks base, and then demanded a contract. Or I think that these things were slowly in motion and sped up with when it became clear PMR were going to be struggling with that title sponsor.
Yeah, we already knew that PMR were going to be struggling when Mikey Doble was coming out and saying, I need sponsors to get me onto the grid for next season. Us assuming that he would stay with PMR going forwards, I think it's going to be made more difficult now, especially with such a big sponsor pulling away from the whole team.
Yeah.
And the fact that Aaron Taylor Smith is now moving on, it's a real... Yeah, it's almost taking their legs out from underneath them, that, I think.
It can go one of two ways, can't it? It'll either go the way of Team Dynamics, which lost the sponsorship deal really late into the off-season, which then completely scuppered their plans, and we've not seen them since. Or it gives a driver who's got a lot of money behind them or a big sponsor behind them a real chance to swoop in and go, right, this is my chance now. You're thinking of someone that can bring... And in reality, there's not that many drivers out there.
I know exactly who you're about to say.
Who?
Greece?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I was going to say potentially Watson if he wants to stay in the touring cars to go back there with the Howden stuff. Potentially. Obviously, Watson hasn't been announced anywhere yet.
No.
But I think now, as you say, it goes one of two ways. They fold completely because they can't find anything, or somebody with a big package, like a Plato and Adrian Flux. I don't think that is going to happen, by the way. Just spell that. But somebody like that who can bring a big sponsor like that along with them. Maybe there's an energy drink on the market that may or may not exist that can come in and take over. But yeah, that is going to be the key now, isn't it? Because Vauxhall themselves won't get involved, I shouldn't have thought, the front of shortfall. So it's going to be a case of, is there a driver who's currently not got a seat who can bring a good wad of sponsorship deal to get that team running?
It would be a real shame if we are to lose PMR from the 2025 grid, especially as to what they've accomplished over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think they were still on an upward trajectory as well. So to have that just like cut short would be really unfortunate to see. I really do hope that they find the right sponsor out there or find the right driver to bring that sponsorship with them. But I think even if that does happen, I think they will have a difficult season because of it. I think it will knock them back.
Nick House doesn't have a drive yet.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
We shall see.
We shall see.
Away from PMR, Aaron Taylor Smith has got a seat, and he is at Toyota. And from the press releases, in the big Toyota team, as it were, the manufacturer-backed Toyota team.
It's a really interesting press release from what I've read. In the fact...
Suggesting you've not read it all. You've just read parts of...
I've read the important bits. The fact is, he is going to the main, quote, main part of the team, with obviously Pearson already announced there.
And covered in a previous podcast.
Yes. And to have both of those drivers fronting up that team seems, on the face of it, fairly good. An experienced driver within the touring cars, one that's up and coming, hungry for more. It normally makes a decent combination.
Yeah.
But it really makes me question Toyota have changed everything again.
Yeah, but...
Why?
Because nothing's worked so far, has it? They've gone for the safe pair of hands, the experienced driver in Rory Butcher, and then obviously Ricky Collard, who's maybe not so experienced in touring cars, but he's a hell of a race driver with a lot of racing pedigree in the family. He's not disappointed anywhere he's been, and subject to a few stewards' decisions, he could have had a British touring car race win. But so that didn't really work. They didn't challenge the title. Butcher didn't challenge the title. Right. Ingram was the last driver there to really make a fist of that car. Yep. Let's not also forget that Corolla's getting old now. You think that Ingram ran that under the Gangsters?
Yep.
Obviously, we then had the Butcher years as well. Last year, what were we really expecting? They brought in a rookie, really, in Watson, who'd won the Jack Sears, but had done so against a field that it wasn't a classic Jack Sears. His main competitor was his own teammate, if we're being brutally honest.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which surely would then make you argue that Pearson's maybe not as good of a driver.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Go on.
I'll get to that in a minute. They also had Rob Huff last year, who excellent racing car pedigree, really top driver, but been away from the sport. And he did really well. Yeah, he did well in the circumstances. But what were you realistically expecting? when you've got a rookie in his second season and a driver's been away for 20 years.
And there was also a lot of discontent towards the end of the season as to how the car was performing, and that was outwardly spoken by Huff himself.
Yeah, then the other side of the garage, you've got Cook and Moffat, who, I mean, we've had your Moffat discussions before.
That was the first year running that car for them.
Yep.
There's a lot to get used to, and quote, it's a satellite team, might not have had all the bits to their disposal.
And Cook does what Cook did. Sorry, Cook did what Cook does, which is to finish sixth, which is, But then also, in Toyota's defence, you then got to look at who they're up against. They're up against two of the great, well, three actually. You should be putting Hill in that category. Three of the greatest drivers of their generation.
Mm-hmm.
Sutton, Ingram, and Hill are phenomenal. They're three of the best we have ever seen in the touring cars.
Yep.
And they'll go down as three of the best we've ever seen in the touring cars. That's a hell of a task to say to anybody, right, you are going to go and beat those three. And then you look at who else they've got in those teams. Camish is no slouch. Turkington, who we'll get to, is a top end driver. So for it's difficult. What do you expect? But I do agree with you. The only way I think to build and to challenge is to have solidity.
Yes.
Hill has been at BMW now for a number of seasons. Sutton has been at Napa for a number of seasons, and Ingram's been at Virtue for a number of seasons. You
need to build that car around the driver that is going to give you the best chance of winning the championship.
Agreed.
And then you have the drivers that are alongside that can help and support, take points off of other drivers in and around that championship battle, and be there when you really need them to back you up, which is something that we've seen Ingram struggle with over the last couple of seasons. They may have moved towards that going into this year, but we'll wait and see. The other thing that I find crucial from the press release is that they're still saying it's going to be a 4-car team, which in my mind is going to make it look more like the Hyundai outfit and the Ford outfit in having 4 cars, all with the same livery, all with the Toyota Gazoo backing. And then it really makes me question who the hell's going to be in the other 2 cars.
Yeah, will it be 4 cars into the same team like Napa run and like Virtue run, or is it going to be a satellite team? If it is, who the hell's going to come and sponsor it? Is this where the illustrious Vortex will be? Well, no, because they said they're running Cupras.
Yep.
One Motorsport are a separate entity.
Yep.
So it's not going to be them. So that is bizarre. And also, what's happened to Toyota's driver program? None of those are coming through.
I don't think there has necessarily been a fully fledged driver program, especially for the saloon car side of things.
But didn't Sam Smelt some years ago come through?
Yeah, but he came from GTs.
Yeah, true.
It was very much that GT side of racing, and if they're going to look more into that, then maybe we see them run a team in the Tokyo Juniors. I find it unlikely because nothing has been announced, and I think that would be quite a big announcement for Toyota to go, look, we're backing 2 drivers in this, and we want a development program.
But as we discussed before, I think most big teams and big drivers or big driver programs
we'll see how it goes for a year.
Yeah, they start chucking the money and backing behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've managed to speak for about 13 minutes without actually really talk about Aaron Taylor Swift and what a great move this is for him because, as I say, he finished 7th.
Could be a great move.
Oh, it is.
We said that about Watson. We said, look...
Oh, he's more experienced than Watson.
I know. But Watson coming out of being a Sears champion, going into and getting that manufacturer back in, something that I don't believe Taylor Smith has had in his career before.
Yes.
I
think he has.
Has he?
Was he at BMR for a while?
I think this is the chance where he's developed, and it's weird because he was really comfortable at PMR, and he said that at the end of last season, and he wanted to go forward with them. So I do think this is a deal that's come this year rather than at the end of last.
And I think he's come out with the fact that he's looking after, as he should be, there's a lot of criticism,
his own interests.
Making sure he's on the grid next year and in the best possible option. Now, I think you're right. I think that if you're, we said this about Watson, would you be better staying at a team you're comfortable with and doing really well in? But if that's not an option, or potentially not an option, you go for the next best thing.
And I don't think there were many other places that he could possibly have gone that would give him what he wants in a car that's going to challenge at the front, to win races, to take consistent podiums, and possibly even go for the championship.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a good move. I'm going to go early on this and say that his renaissance in the touring car career, it has been remarkable. Last year, as I say, he finished 7th in a car that was a lot old. I know we've made a lot of it, but he certainly I would say drove above the capabilities of that car last
Yes.
year. And look at some of the names he beat, it's very impressive.
Mm.
He's now going to a team that, if it's just the two in the Gazoo racing stuff, you'd imagine he's the lead driver.
Yes, definitely.
If you're Pearson, what a guy to learn from. Particularly his happy-go-lucky attitude, which
yeah.
Pearson.
He seems really relaxed as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, Pearson perhaps potentially struggled with some of the mental lows of the sport at his time, with which I understand. Obviously, a young kid, things aren't going your way, sponsors aren't happy, all that kind of stuff. It's difficult. But I think Aaron Taylor-Swift has been there, done that, got the T-shirt, got the scars, and has got such a unique outlook in the way that touring. He has, isn't he? He's such, he's just a happy chap.
It's the typical Irish outlook, isn't it?
He's just,
you make the most of what's there.
Yeah, he's just really happy, and I think that will help somebody like Pearson just sort of, settle into the harder side of the touring cars.
Yep.
I see no reason why he wouldn't succeed there. Personally, is how I feel. It's a similar shaped car to what he's used to would have been used to at PMR. It's going to be a team that, with all due respect to PMR, will be a step up in terms of every single aspect of it. You'd have thought.
And reports are there have been a lot of developments over the off season, shall I say. Obviously last season didn't go as planned, and I think they have had some sort of reset from that, including the changing up of the drivers. Whether we see a completely different Toyota going into next season, I kind of hope we do, because I'd love to see 4 different manufacturers challenging for 3 steps on a podium each weekend.
And if you think about the development of the Astra, Taylor Swift was present from it going from a mid to where it got to. So if you're trying to now develop a car, and again, Huff is obviously brilliant, but he's not been in the sport for 20 years. Is it better to have somebody who can go, he's done that?
Do you know what I wonder as well? Whether he's going to bring in any engineers or anything with him, especially if engineers are seeing that PMR are struggling, and you go, okay, I'd like to jump ship as well, as it were, and go to a driver that I'm comfortable working with. I know exactly what he wants. I know how he likes things done. It could be a good combination.
At the very least, you'd expect him to take his race engineer, because that's
definitely
generally the thing that's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Great news for Aaron Taylor-Smith. Really looking forward to seeing how he gets on. And I think I'm going to go early on this. He will get his win this year in that car.
Okay.
Putting out there now. He came close last season a couple of times. I think with this car and this team, he can really push through. Championship contender, no. I'm putting it out there right from the start, because you can't look past the 3 I mentioned.
Yep.
Add Camish into the conversation, maybe. But for me, it's going to be between those 3 again. And it probably will be for the next 10 years if they all stay in the sport. So we move on to WSR, which is an absolute basket case at the minute. There's so much going on. So BMW seem to have withdrawn or stepped back from some of the funding for the touring cars and aren't as heavily involved as they were, which would make sense to why LKQ with Cinetic and all other bits and pieces have become part of the family. Just
like when eBay sponsored them, when RAC sponsored them, it may be going back into that sort of era of having to have big sponsors come in and support the team, because, as you say, BMW are slightly taking a step back.
Yeah, I mean, Odi Lyon has been announced next year, which is a left field move, but what I'm happy with. But it's a bold move from a team like
it's a big
WSR.
step.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And then, of course, Colin announced on Valentine's Day that he is stepping away for 2025 and possibly forevermore.
Broke people's hearts, didn't he? And what a day to do it on.
I know. Now, what's interesting is what Dick Bennett has had to say about the matter, because the way Colin worded it in his sort of release was that he'd sort of decided the time was right.
Yes.
Lots of things to consider, but obviously, and we know from away from the scene that his family are getting into racing. His kids, I think Louise, his wife, has done some racing as well. And also, I think Colin will be acutely aware that he is one of the last few from a certain era, and there's a time to go out. And I'm going to dig out Plato and Neil here, who, in my opinion, stay too long.
Yeah.
Certainly Plato. And it wasn't nice as a Plato appreciator to see him struggling in 12th, 13th towards the end of his career, because that's not the Jason Plato we knew. No. And the Jason Plato that made me in particular fall in love with the sport. And I think Colin Turkington will be acutely aware that you can hang around and you can do a Tom Chilton and you can stay in the series and pick up a win here and there. But Colin wants to be fighting for championships. Yeah. If he's not fighting for a championship, which he was last year to a degree, but if he will be acutely aware there's a good way to time your absence. And I think that will be part of his mind. But then Dick Bennett comes out and says, and I quote, "It was always our intention to continue our partnership into a 9th consecutive season and a 19th campaign in total. However, despite our best efforts, commercial realities have meant that this has simply not been possible." Which says to me, it's all about the dollar, baby.
Yeah, and Turkington's never been one to specifically need sponsorship to get into the sport. Even when
in his later career.
Yeah, in his later career, because he's always been that driver that manufacturers have backed. And even when he went and drove for like BMR, he was a top driver then, and they had bags of sponsorship from elsewhere that was able to support his season of racing. This, I think, there is partially the money side of it, and that BMW are taking that step back. But I also think we've been saying it for a couple of seasons now.
Oh yeah,
this could be his last one. This could be his last one. Looks like last year probably was his last one by the sounds of it now. I'm going to go early on this. I don't see him coming back.
No, I agree with you entirely. I agree with you entirely.
I think he is probably done and dusted, but I could quite easily see him hanging around the paddock, especially if his kids are going to get into racing. And dare I say it, are we going to see one of them in Toka Juniors?
It would make sense, depending.
It would make massive sense.
If that's the discipline they want to get into, of course, they might not be interested in top racing. They might want to go off-roading or other bits and pieces. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, that could be a possibility. I also think this decision's come quite late in the day for 2025. I think that he probably did plan to do this season, and then this commercial reality has prevented that.
Yep.
That also makes me wonder who's going to step in, because obviously we don't know if Delion has bought the Duckins partnership with him at the moment.
Yep.
We know you're going to have a lot of money. The initial early odds seem to be somebody from the Carrera package.
Okay.
Who would have deep pockets. Now, I would potentially think Smalley, maybe. I would potentially... I would say I don't think Jelly would be making a return, personally.
No. Gamble, last year's champion.
Could be Gamble. Yeah.
Driven a BMW before.
Yeah. I think Huff is a real possibility.
Yes.
Because I think that what they'll also want at WSR is a lead driver to help Delion settle and nurture him a little bit. And Huff would fit that, and has driven for BMW before. We
must also remember that BMW, of the 4 licenses that they have, 3 drivers are announced. This is the only one left to fill. We've got DeLeon there, we've got Moffat in one, and we've got Hill in one.
But it doesn't work because when they announced Moffat, they said they've got 2 drivers there.
I know.
So,
which then makes you think, is it Cook?
But then WSR running 1 driver, and that's just DeLeon. Then who's his replacement from the Carrera package?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It has really thrown a spanner in the works, because at the end of last season, Dick Bennett's he'd already announced that 2 of the 3 drivers would be coming back for.
Yeah, but I think they did expect Colin to be back. Yeah, and this is why.
And we knew Morgan went fairly early and has gone to Accelerate. And yeah, I don't know whether they're stuck in limbo or whether this deal had been possibly on the cards for a couple of months or so.
But I say I don't know how the licenses work, because Colin was clearly supposed to be lining up. That's what Bennett's between the lines of the press release. That's what he's basically said. He was, they couldn't make it work. That's gone quite late in the day. So clearly they were going to have 2. But LKQ are having 2.
But Toyota have now come out in the second driver announcement and said, we've got 4 licenses that we're planning to fill.
Which makes you question, One Motorsport, have they got? Have they got what? Yeah.
Arguably that's where Moffat's licenses have travelled from, as it were.
Because One Motorsport are the only team who have announced that they have a license to put no announcements out.
Yeah.
Of course, there's also licenses that Toka keep back, and without getting too political, Gow and Bennett are stalwarts of the sport, so I suppose there's possibility of having another license there if it meets the criteria, of course.
Or, I'm going to throw a curveball in here, do PMR only run 1 car while renting a license out?
But again, the only problem with all that is that this has come so late in the day.
I know.
That where have they got, for all intents and purposes, they had 5 licenses. So where's that last one come from? Because for all intents and purposes, that's
I know.
So lots to answer at the BMW. So I think we'll see a guy from the Carrera Cup come in personally, because I think it's going to have to be someone with deep pockets, and I think that there are a couple of drivers in there that fit the key. I would really like it to be King Dick.
You can't refer to him like that.
I've forgotten his name.
Yeah, I've forgotten his name off the top of my head, but yeah, the guy sponsored by King Dick Tools.
Some water company this year.
Yeah, I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
You're going to annoy me now.
I tell you what, bring you up to date on the statistics for Turkington in his Btcc Btcc career, because we believe this is probably him done and gone now.
I think so, yeah.
So 20 seasons in the touring cars with 4 Drivers' Championships, as we all know, matching the record of Andy Rouse. In that time, he's taken 72 wins, had 5 independent championship wins, with 31 pole positions, obviously taking the Goodyear Wingfoot Award last season, the most critical one. 192 podiums with 76 fastest laps, and his debut was all the way back in 2002 when he was a fresh-faced teenager for MG.
Yeah, and
in the atomic kitten car.
I know, which is just, when you look at it now, it's absolutely mental. Can you imagine, like, in this year, Little Mix putting a car in or something, or...
Yeah. They were different times back then, though, weren't
they? Absolutely. A different era of the sport, and going to be missed for sure. For 2025, a lot of people like him. He's a big fan favourite, and it's just comes a very big shock, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and we'd like to hear your best Turkington moments. We may even, now he's departing the championship, do a specific driver look back on him, as we'll probably do for some of the other big names that have been in the touring cars, like Plato, Neil, just to name a few. And we'll pick out his highlights.
Charles Rainford.
Yes.
That was worth it, wasn't it?
He's developed really well as well through the Porsches. He's come up through the ranks, through the AM, through the Pro-Am, and he was a winning driver, I believe, last season, race wins, that is. And yeah, he's developing nicely.
Yeah, as I say, the WSR setup is now, I mean,
up in the air.
All bets are off, really, aren't they, to a degree? I don't see it being Cook, personally. I think budget, look, Cook potentially at times has struggled for budget. I don't see him able to put together 1-4 there, unless Moffat is happy to really foot the bill. I don't see it personally.
Yeah, plus he already says he's got something announced, and as you say, this Turkington thing has come late in the day.
Yeah, and why would you, if he's got something announced, why would he be the main man at LKQ when it's Moffat sponsorship? He just announced both at the same time, so they're both moved over, keeping the winning formula, blah, blah, blah. So, no, I don't see him being at BMW personally. I see him being on the grid, because that's what he said, but I don't see him being at BMW. I think he's more likely to end up at Alliance than he is BMW personally.
Possible. Let us know your thoughts and feelings on these couple of pieces of news that have been released over the last couple of days, and obviously once we release this, there'll be another bit of news coming out. But
it's got to now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to come thick and fast now, because there are still plenty of spaces left to fill on the grid, plenty of teams needing to account for their drivers going forth this season, and
hopefully go first.
Oh, dearie me. And for more of those jokes, come back next week. But yeah, we'll keep you up to date with how things go. Keep an eye on our social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Go and like and subscribe on YouTube as well, and Spotify and all other podcast platforms.
And whilst you're there, leave us a review.
Yeah.
Leave us a thumbs up, a review, preferably 5, so we'll take 4. And we do try and respond to comments on our socials as well. So yeah, we like to interact with you guys. It makes all of this even more worth it.
Yeah, we're going to have a recording weekend coming up soon, hopefully. So we'll have some content to bring out before the start of the season. And we're going to try and get everything sorted to try and go to Media Day once again with some accreditation, so we can get you some even better content than we did last year.
And we have recorded the first touring car history podcast. So keep an eye out on that. That'll be coming out shortly once we've worked out what to do via or regarding the video side of things. But that is on the way. That is recorded. It's now just the difficult bit of.
I was going to say all the audio is edited. It's ready to go. We're just waiting for the graphical side of things.
Yep. And I began writing a script for our next historical look back. So those things are coming alongside. But I hear you cry. Is that going to affect the usual content, the previews, the reviews? No, they're staying. We're just adding because we enjoy making the content.
Yep. So until next time, stay safe, and we'll be back with some more touring car content.
Bye for now. I cannot find that driver. I've got, for some reason, Wikipedia does not have a page for the Carrera Cup, but it has got it for the sprint. I don't want the sprint.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just want his name. And it's really annoying me that I haven't got his name.